Ted Ryman in Cape Town's first one on here today. Cape Town in the Republic of South Africa. Pedro Foiling Sailor in Sydney, where it's 0600 in the morning on Saturday morning. He slept in. Blake Middleton up in Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. Blake, welcome to you and everyone else that's joining Rick Bannerow, day 2, round 2. Yeah, the second show today. He's no longer at the car dealer having his car repaired in Paramus, New Jersey. At least something is looking up. He was on. Ed Worley, hello to Ed in SoCal, and Alistair Murray, G'day, Julia and the FOSI, looking forward to catching up with AC News. Well, not only AC News, but we've got Luca Devoti standing patiently by in Poland, of all places. We've never had somebody in Poland, and we're looking forward to having a long chat with Luca, the sailing savant. Christopher Gillingham, twice in the same day. Marvelous. Yeah, marvelous indeed as we get this one across the starting line. Welcome. Mary Jude made the live show. Saw her on this morning in our watch party. Clayton Embley, greetings from the wheelhouse. Bob Walker in North Texas. J. Frederick Bland, here to gouge and change the gouge on this. Get the gouge, the gauge. He's making fun of our vice president who gave her speech the other night. Confused gouge and gauge. As we look at the 12s here, Julia, we're live from Studio B at the Beach Street Yacht Club for our regular Friday show, 7:36 on Friday the 23rd of August. And welcome to all of you who have joined, most of you for the second time today. Alan Long is back. Hamish Ross, good morning from Marlborough, wine country in NZL. He likes the sight of these 12s. I know Hamish Ross does. Chris Exley in sunny Salem, Mass. And many others. Phil Laffin. John Emmett is back. We have a nice report from John. Julia, I trust you are well.
I am.
Any hot tips before we get started?
Naps are good.
Yeah, you got a nap. I didn't get a nap because I was preparing this bloody show and getting ready for Luca. But it's the Tom and Julia show here again from Studio B, and we're delighted to have Luca with us. Josh Toso is listening from atop the Golden Gate Bridge. He must be driving across the bridge as he is here, Julia, in San Francisco for the Melgus 24 Worlds, which are being hosted over at San Francisco Yacht Club over in Marin County and Belvedere. J. Frederick Bland, holy stuff, real boat sailing on the water, in the water. As we look at Peter de Savry's Victory 83, not from 1983 when it campaigned and was in the finals of the first ever Louis Vuitton Cup against Australia 2, and of course, Lost 2 beat them and went on to win the Cup in America's Cup 25. Welcome, everybody. Mark Wharton Reed is back from Chicago. He's in my home state of Grand Rapids, Michigan. John Emmett's put a link up to some photos on Instagram. Thank you for that. Fritz Mueller checking in from Miami. And all the rest of you around literally the globe. Welcome to the show. I want to do a couple thank yous here. First of all, on the watch party this morning, we had Graham Sweeney and another new FOSI came on from Nevada, but Graham Sweeney was on via Zoom from his home in Scotland in the Shetland Islands, and it was fabulous.
Yes,
to have him on. Don't you think, Julia?
Yes, and I loved his setting, his study here. There he is. Yeah.
No, well, that's his picture, Julia.
Right. I know.
That's a thank you picture. So yes. There he is, and I just wanted to thank him for coming on this morning via Zoom, and it was nice to have him on as kind of a co-host and just some more expertise as we went forward. Thanks.
Yes.
We're going to call him Zoomer, Julia, from now on.
Good.
Zoomer Sweeney.
Yeah, he was really good.
And then a very pleasant surprise. At the door, there was a little knock about 8 o'clock this morning after we got off, half an hour or so after we got off the air, from Rich Fishbeck, who's up in Alaska on a boat. And Rich sent 2 bagels with, I brought one up to you,
yes,
Julia.
Indeed,
It was pretty good.
Perfect.
Egg, cheese, and bacon.
Yes.
Can't get too much bacon.
No.
Bacon's good for you, right?
It is.
Huh?
Yes.
And yeah, Millie the dog co-hosted with Graham. That is true. And we appreciate very much Rich Fishbeck for sending us a little breakfast treat this morning.
Yes.
And they've done that before, as I mentioned on the show this morning after Julia, the late night.
Yes.
The late night live streams we've done, they've sent us a little dinner afterwards via, I don't know,
and I'm also
Uber Eats.
Impressed that it was ordered by sea from the Northland.
Well, up in Alaska, he's on a yacht. You know, this is 2024. You can order just about anything. Look at Lucas. They're just smiling from ear to ear.
Well, we do have an international.
He's in Poland. We've never had a guest on live from Poland. No, we haven't. I'm telling you, we haven't. I got Clark Chapin checking, but we do have Luca on with us. I want to bring him on because Clark Chapin tells me that this is Luca's 5th time on the show. Last time Clark says, show 374 in January of 2021. But Luca and I remember him coming on the show. Maybe it was a last-minute ad when he was in bed at the Athletes Village, Luca.
When I was in prison.
But you were at
that was actually a pretty amazing adventure in all this madness of COVID. So, Japanese are very nice and they don't have no in their language, but they are fundamentally racist. So they thought that COVID was brought by foreigners. And so we stayed in a hotel and we couldn't get out. And it was a very long hotel, and it had an incredibly long swimming pool in front of it. And the Japanese were swimming and socializing and drinking, and we were locked in because we were foreigners, and I found that pretty funny. Tested it once a day, so it was a bit of an interesting experience.
So, Luca, we're going to talk about obviously what happened in Marseille. You being an Olympic silver medalist from 2000. In Sydney in the Finn class. I see Giovanni Ceccarelli is on. Giovanni, he's saying, ciao, Luca. So welcome to you, Giovanni. So we'll talk about the Olympics, what happened in Marseille. We're going to talk about what's going on in Barcelona. You've been watching the races closely, carefully, and give us your comparison, your compare and contrast the various teams. And then we will also talk about world sailing and the upcoming election. In fact, John Emmett says he's very interested in the inside track and what is happening with world sailing. I also hear that maybe Mr. David Graham is on his way back to Saudi Arabia, Luca. So I'm going to want to ask you about that as well. Yeah, that's what I hear from one of our very, very well tuned in FOSI. So we'll talk about that. But before we get to that, what happened, Julia? What happened this day in history on the 23rd of August, 1851?
Well,
Luca?
I have no idea.
The day after the first America's Cup. The first America's Cup was raced on the 22nd of August, 1851. And the day after, something very interesting happened. In fact, in terms of kind of global political economies, the Brits and the Americans had just fought a war, remember, in 1812. This was not too long after that. America sold to a British guy, the yacht America. Chris actually is asking, no, it was the 23rd. It was the day after the first cup race, which was yesterday, the 22nd. Slingers got schooled by Jimmy, Brent Bacon is saying. That was this morning. So here's your first and only clue.
Aha.
Julia, ladies first.
That's where the famous line comes from.
Absolutely not.
Really not?
No, the famous line had been uttered the day before when she was on her boat on the Victoria and Albert when apparently her signalman said, "Who is first?"
And she said,
not she, she said, "Who is first?" And her signalman reportedly said, "Mum, or Your Majesty, it's the Yacht America who is second." And the signalman said, "Your Majesty, there is no second." But this is the day after. This is Chris Exley's got it. Ed Worley's got it. The Queen, visited the Yacht America. They didn't ask her to come. She formally, apparently, in fact, if you read Magnus the Magnificent's book that we have here on the back table, There Is No Second, and you go delving in on the day after his whole chapter about the cup being raced, the race around the Isle of Wight for the cup, you'll see that he details this whole history, which is very cool. And it was on that day, the 23rd, that she requested to go have a look and was told by the captain, Mark Collins says, to wipe, was told by the captain, Brown, Dick Brown was his name, to wipe your feet. So, you tell the Queen to wipe your feet, don't you? You'd tell that, Luca, if the Queen came on your yacht.
Well, I am a Republican.
You're not a royalist?
Definitely not. Certainly being Italian, even less.
Okay. Well, Julia, that's apparently what happened on this day in history. Her Majesty Queen Victoria visited the Yacht America. There's several other cool stories that are related to that, including apparently one of her people trying to look over the side of the boat to see if there was a propeller, because the boat was so fast relative to the fleet. Looked over the side of the boat, and it almost fell in, and somebody grabbed his leg. Well, it was a wooden leg. It was a fake leg, a peg leg, and they pulled the leg off his. It was quite apparently a scene. I don't know if Magnus the Magnificent wrote about that in his book. Chris actually saying, yeah, I love that part of Magnus's book. And of course, Chris actually, Ed Worley rather, is quite right. The painting is not accurate. America had a tiller. She had a tiller, then she had a wheel, then she had a tiller again. Hey, lady, boat shoes only, Clayton Emily is saying. I thought Keith Richards was born about then, Ted Ryman is saying. Okay, that's what happened in this day in history. This day in history on the 23rd of August, 1851. Hey, Luca, do you have a headset there? You have a headset?
Sadly enough, no.
Okay, we'll make do, and I've got the mix minus on, so most of the audio will hopefully won't come back. Maybe turn your volume down just enough that you can still hear us blathering on at this end, and then hopefully it won't feed the audio back in quite so much into your speaker. We're getting a little bit of that. Blake Middleton liked Ted's comment. And we'll press on here. Some of you saw on my Facebook page last night, and that was from the, what, Julia?
The Wizard.
The Wizard of Oz. And who is that lady that's melting away?
The Wicked Witch of...
Which one?
The West.
Wicked Witch of the West is correct. The Wicked Witch of the East was the one who lost her shoe. You saw her shoes under the house after the house came plunging down. And that was the Wicked Witch of the East. And that's when the Munchkins were all singing, ding dong, the witch is dead, the Wicked Witch. But it was this scene later on, after the Wicked Witch of the West was trying to apparently, she and her minions were trying to get rid of the Lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and Dorothy and her dog. And somebody threw water on her when she was fired. Didn't she set the Scarecrow on fire? I think that's what happened. She set the Scarecrow on fire, and then they all threw water on the Scarecrow, Dorothy did, to try to, maybe others, and to try to save the Scarecrow. And some of the water went on her. And unbeknownst to everybody, she melts in water, which is sort of like the non-sailing CEO, I thought. Surely, huh? The non-sailing CEO, Luca. He saw enough water in Marseille that I think he has melted, because the word is, I told you all, some of you yesterday, which is why I had this on my Facebook cover photo yesterday. I knew he was on his way out because I had a very good one here from a certain person who's on here watching, actually. And it was, as usual, I'm not going to say if it's a he or she. I use that terrible pronoun they.
You don't.
For the singular. And they is she is always right. And once again said, Glenda, Claire Harrington is Glenda. She is a bit of a Glenda. She is terrific, that Vice Commodore in New York. But he's gone. This morning, That came out. We were on the watch party. That press release came out. Several of you read the headline, told us, put the headline in the comments, and we're delighted to report that that is what we are celebrating today. Not the Wicked Witch of the West is dead, but has melted away. I'm sure he's got a heart of gold, but they have done a couple of croutonic things beyond belief. First of all, after the ridiculous performance by our sailing team in Marseille. Okay, full marks to Ian Barrows and Hans Henken, who won a bronze medal. And I've got Hans and maybe even Ian coming to the Stag Cruise as guests. So, and Hans is from the Bay Area. He's a member of St. Francis. St. Francis supported that 49er team, yes. And they are the only medalists, like Caleb Payne was in 2016.
And the only supporters of the team.
Well, no, there were other supporters. In fact, to their credit, they went off and did their own thing outside of U.S. Sailing. Yeah. And of course, U.S. Sailing's now wrapping their arms around them. So, oh, we got a bronze medalist. When I know from talking with insiders connected with that team, they're giving full credit to Paul Kayard and to all of the financial supporters of Kayard and his crowd, including the St. Francis Sailing Foundation, including St. Francis Yacht Club, including New York Yacht Club, including Oyster Bay, and Dawn Riley and that group there. Mm-hmm. And these guys sent a statement out a couple days ago saying, oh, we did such a great job and we're positioning U.S. Sailing going forward. Well, in Michigan, Luca, we would call that a balls washing, a testicle testament, a balls washing.
Well, we could say that the U.S. has a problem with sailing when you think that both the helmsmen of American Magic are not American. So that's, but we can talk about that later.
Well, that's a point. At least Tom Slingsby, his mother's American. He's got an American passport, so he's sort of quasi-Aussie American. None of us think Aussie. None of us think of him as anything other than American, though, right? Because, he sailed, he won Olympic medals for Australia. He's running their Sail GP team and won 3 world championships in the Sail GP. But we'll get back to that. Bloody hell, thank God, the non-sailing CEO, I'm not even going to, it's like Voldemort, I'm not even going to name him, is leaving this is the press release this morning. He's leaving a legacy of transformation. I'm sorry, he's leaving a legacy of fusterclucks. There is more mess that he is leaving behind. One of the things they said in the press release is that he'd modernized the place, transformed it into a professional operation, notwithstanding, Julia, and notwithstanding both of you, most of the people that he hired either subsequently got fired or have quit. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. I mean, the guy was a complete and utter crouton as a leader of U.S. sailing. I'm sure he's got a heart of gold. I'm sure he's done other good things. But man, oh man. Ed Worley wishing him well and success in other endeavors. Fritz Mueller agrees the email was unbelievable. John Emmett, USA got more dinghy Olympic medals than GBR. Well, okay. Graham Sweeney, damn, we need another drinking word. We're going to make a suggestion later about that, Graham, or maybe you, FOSI, will come up with one. Did you know, Luca, that they were, over the months now that I've been saying the non-sailing CEOs got to go, the FOSI, that they use that, they're all chatting behind the scenes. We see their chat here on the chat screen, but they're also got a group text, and I don't know what else is going on behind the scenes. And every time I said the non-sailing CEOs got to go,
they took
a drink. Especially the people in Europe at night and the people on Saturday morning and down under. What do you think of that, Luca?
Well, you're a dangerous person.
Well, see, Julia's giving me, or forgive us the finger wag again, Julia. Now, Luca, with your help, we've gotten rid of 2 non-sailing CEOs. You and I and Julia and a few others got rid of that crouton who was Mr. Hunt, who was the non-sailing CEO of World Sailing, and I'm pleased to say we played, hopefully, a small role in getting rid of this fustercluck. I mean, geez. Do not say his name 3 times, Ed Worley says, or we'll. He's gone, and I'm giddy. I'm sorry. I'm so happy about it. And Larry, people are saying they're ready to go in there and do the job. Come on, Chris. It's corporate PR communique. Yeah, time to move on. I'm sure there will be some non-sailing CEOs in the 2028 cycle. Clayton Emily says, my liver thanks you. Larry Kennedy says, well, he's a great race officer. Yes, Tom is a bad influence. Graham agrees with you. And in any event, that's the news. The non-sailing CEO is gone, or at least he will be as of the 30th of this month. And I've been telling you he was going to be gone in September, so he beat me to the punch. Now, whether he got kicked out or whether he resigned or both, I suspect, since he's been named in that press release as an advisor, staying on in an advisory capacity, I think that means they're buying him out of his contract. He is stepping aside before he got fired because they have a presidential election for U.S. sailing coming up in a couple months, and I think the handwriting was on that wall. So we're celebrating that today. We're happy about it. I am, at least, and I know a lot of you are as well. I'm sure he's got a heart of gold. We wish him the best in future endeavors, but please, not in our sport. Not in our sport. Don't go take over world sailing if indeed David leaves. I'm talking like I know him personally. I don't. Sailing Illustrated is also grateful for your support with all of you who give us a few bucks a month or more. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated to help keep us, our studio, our Skype account, our Zoom account so we can have Graham Sweeney on. Congratulations on completing another lap around the sun to Lily, who must be celebrating a birthday, John Emmett's wife. And that gets us through the preliminaries, the A block. And why don't we then, before we get back to Luca and we'll get gas bagging with him, at least he'll be giving us real good, the good oil, as the Kiwis would say, Julia.
Yes.
And I'll do the gas bagging, and you can weigh in with your pithy comments from Stanford. But let's give some time to John Emmett, who filed his report this morning after watching the racing in Barcelona, and he has some interesting observations.
I bet he does.
As well, via the Coach's Corner, our regular feature with Super Coach and Super FOSI John Emmett, who was this morning in Weymouth.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the FOSI. I'm recording this freshly after watching the America's Cup, and I'm here in sunny Weymouth. And first of all, a few thoughts about the AC. And I've said it before, I'll say it again because I feel it's very true. The boat speed makes you a tactical genius. And if there's a differential in VMG by maybe 3%, I think it's going to be very hard for anyone to make up that deficit. And I think already we're beginning to see who's fast and who's not. And probably the most important thing for me in terms of the VMG is the upwind VMG, being able to go slow and high, stay on your falls, and also to be able to go, low and fast to downgrade that gauge or that leverage you get from the other teams. And then as soon as you get to within, say, 1%, then perhaps it's all about the start, because I'm not sure the distance, but if you get 150 meters clear, it looks like it's really possible to close down the race. Now, maybe that's 100, maybe it's 200, maybe it's 250 when it's windy, but that is a really key skill, which is why the very first part of the race is so important. Now, you may have noticed the background is looking a little bit different here. At the Academy, we've got the WASP Nationals, which is, of course, the perfect build-up for the WASP Worlds, which is going to be held later on. And it's interesting, with Barcelona, people were a little bit worried about having not enough wind. Well, the problem with having Weymouth more often than not is having too much wind, but they got quite a lot of racing done today. And it's really important when thinking about your stepping stones and how you're going to progress, is what you practice, what you do is what you get good at. So if you want to do media like Tom and Julia, the more you do it, the better you get. If you want to do coaching, the more you do, the better you get. And if you want to get good at sailing, the more you do, the better you get, but also about making it really specific. So we often talk about the grassroots of sports or the pathway, and I think the Wasp class, the one design foiling boat, is probably, in terms of dinghies, at the moment, the perfect pathway to get into foiling. So wishing them lots of luck this week. Hope they have a really good championships, and may the best man or woman win. That's it for now, and I'm looking forward to lots more action at the AC. So sail fast, sail safe, and have lots of fun wherever you are.
I think he gets the new title of Fuzzy Fozzy. He's
Yeah.
taking that away from Bannerow, from Rick Bannerow. A lot of you commented. Thank you, John Emmett. Thank you very much. He's on here watching. Luca, before we move on to our other topics, first of all, what do you think of the Wasp as an up-and-coming one-design foiler, moth, single-handed?
Well, it's yeah, it's a good boat. I mean, it's a little fragile and limited in wind and wave range, which is the problem for all these boats. And we could talk on a larger subject. Where are we taking sailing? Foiling has not been invented in this century. It was invented in the previous century, and they had even the Hobie Trifoiler out there, and he went nowhere. And it's not that the numbers are any bigger now, is that the normal sailing is shrinking like hell. So we got a problem, we got an issue there. Those who love the sport should be concerned, and maybe not all the shine is gold.
Yeah, maybe not all of the Chinese gold. Before we go further, just tell, I'm going to put back up here on the lower thirds. You are in a town in Poland. Don't you know, you're still living in Valencia, Spain, yes? You and your wife and kids?
Yes, I am.
So what are you doing up in Poland?
I have my yard here because when we established the yard, and that was already over 30 years ago, it was in England. And then just life took us to Poland, and we started in 2003 with a yard in Poland in a small village next to Wrocław called Drzeżoniów. And I only found out 10 years later that both my grandparents from the mother's side were coming from the same region. So I stranded about 60 kilometers away from a city called Treptow, where my family was coming from, and I find that pretty funny. So it's like going back to the roots, and here it's where we built the boats at Devoti Sailing.
So what boats are Devoti Sailing now building besides the Finn and the Ilka 7, for example?
Yeah, and we're building. Well, we have taken on just now what was called the SB3 and then the SB20, and we're going to try to relaunch that and make it, very nice. It's a very nice small keelboat, and we're going to try to make it price-worthy and try to get people sailing more. And then we are probably going to start building an American class called the C420, and we're designing some new boats. So it's a lot on, and we're making optimists and we're making foils. We have a specialized foil department, and so it's a lot of fun and a lot of work.
Well, John Emmett, I know he's saying in the comment that the SB20 is a fantastic boat, but I know he's been wearing the D1 shirt pullover that he's had for some weeks now, and he's sailing a Devoti, a D1.
No, a D0.
Oh, a D0. Okay. What's a D0? Tell us about that.
Well, it's a single-handed boat. Well, a development of the laser. It is much lighter. It's got a carbon mast. You can trim the rake a little bit. It's a beautiful boat, but we never had the size to really promote it worldwide. So it's become a proper class in the UK, funnily enough. I mean, in what is the most dinghy-friendly country, and people love it. And we've taken one or two to North America, and maybe we'll start it here. We'll see what that brings. It's a boat we did about 10 years ago, and we have a new one coming soon.
Can you tell us about that?
We do a deal. I'll tell you in the next show.
Okay. How long? Clark Chapin's taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
Is this in a week or a month or a what?
4 months.
Full month. So in a month or two. Well, I know that 4 months. Thank you, Julia.
Yeah,
in 4 months.
4 months.
Well, I know that you and John Emmett have become quite good friends. He's a big fan of yours, and I know vice versa. And I just want to wrap up by saying that John Emmett Sailing get to the front of the fleet. As you know, he gives us a regular video. And Luca, you should think about giving us maybe not a regular video because you're moving around so much, but if you give us a video too from time to time, it would be great.
Yes.
Well, I will think about that, but let's see if my explosive comments tonight will be liked or not.
I hope. The nice thing about you, and we were talking about this this morning on the watch party about you coming out, is that you say what you mean what you say without, and you're not mean. You're good-natured about it, and you care about the sport as much or more than all of us. So it's nice to have people on who love the sport, and that's why you're on. So here we go. Let's Julia, anything for Luca about? I mean, he was in Elba. He wasn't in exile in Elba. He was on holiday for a month, right? Or were you checking out Napoleon's? Is he buried there?
Well, yeah, no. He was there for a year and a half, but he had a couple of villas there. But he was, yeah. I mean, and for those times, he was one of the most famous personalities in the world. So to end up on Elba was pretty strange because the island actually at that time was very, not very. There were not a lot of population. It was poor. They had mines there, and it is not the tourist paradise it is now. So very different times.
So one last question before we go to the America's Cup. Last I knew, you spoke 6 languages. Are you now speaking Polish as well?
No. No, we discussed that in our tech check. There's this article that's come out that says that aging doesn't happen slowly. It just happens in 2 defined times, one at around 44 years of age and one in your early 60s. I've done both those, so now I can't age anymore.
Well, that's what Julia and I say,
Yeah.
I'm 70, she's 85, so we're past those. I saw the same article. Do you think that's true? Do you think those are the 2 big aging points?
Add my classic education to the languages I speak. And then we could say that I know a little bit of Latin and Old Greek. So that would take it to 8, but that is a bit presumptuous, I guess.
I believe.
You believe, Julia?
Yeah.
I believe. We're going to have a religious service here. I believe. Here we go. Yeah, okay, speaking of religion, let's go talk about the America's Cup. We're delighted to have Luca on.
Oh, man.
Let's talk about the America's Cup, and then we'll talk about Marseille, then we'll talk about World Sailing and do that. But let's talk about the Cup. Everybody wants to. I put a thing on my Facebook, and I'm getting texts. I'm getting pinged here by everybody. What's this one heard? And I'm hearing that other staff are resigning from U.S. Sailing, by the way. I mean, they have to clean house, and they got to have an election.
Well,
but you want to say something, Luca?
I know nothing about U.S. Sailing, so I can't say anything there.
Okay, let's get on to the Cup because everybody, a lot of people that are on here, were on the watch party the last couple of days that we've done it, 0500 here in San Francisco time. And we'll do them again on tomorrow morning by popular demand. I think they've been, and I've enjoyed doing it. It was fun, Julia.
Yeah.
You were watching upstairs in the Commodore's quarters, and particularly today when Graham Sweeney was on with me via Zoom.
He was good.
Wasn't he good?
He was.
Tomorrow there are 4 races. Again, this is a single round robin. Each team races each of the other 5 once. So 5 races. Then the top 2 teams at the end go into that final race on Sunday, A and B. And that's top teams meaning in points. And if there's a tie, it's who beat who in their respective match. And we'll continue those watch parties at 1400 CET, 1200 UTC, so 1400 local in Barcelona, 1200 UTC, 0500 here, 0800 on the East Coast, and bloody hell, middle of your night down under. We'll do that again tomorrow morning and Sunday and come back to some of the things we saw. But the news this morning from Magnus the Magnificent, our super FOSI, who is writing all of the press releases and a lot of the stuff that is online, his headline was Kiwis on top. It's all about the Kiwis. Kiwis on top at the Louis Vuitton Preliminary Regatta. And this was one of the photos used in the lead article right after today's racing, after the second day of racing ended. And here is some more prose from our Magnus the Magnificent. Barcelona, once again, put on its finest display today on day 2 of the Louis Vuitton Preliminary Regatta with outstanding sailing conditions for the sailors and wonderful viewing opportunities for the spectators. All along the Barceloneta, how do you say that, Luca? Barceloneta? Barceloneta, which is the beachfront there. And at the free-to-enter official race village and fan zones, the crowds were out in force for a spectacle of high-octane racing at its finest. Even Craig Lewick in Sailing Scuttlebutt last night said, "Oh, here's their press release that's rather full of adjectives."
Well, I'm still a fan.
Well, we're all fans, and we want the America's Cup to work. It's the pinnacle event in our sport.
Right.
But they only have had 20,000 viewers on the YouTube, give or take, and not the 3 or 4 million viewers that they had in 83 and 87 when they were live. Okay, so here are the standings after the second day of racing, and ETNZ is on top with 3 wins. LRPP, who didn't win against ETNZ, are on second, tied for second technically, but they don't show that in this graphic. But again, you would break the tie in favor of LRPP, they having beaten American Magic today. We'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. So New York Yacht Club's American Magic in third, also on 2 points. Alinghi Red Bull Racing in fourth on 1 point, and then the Brits and the French at the bottom on 0 points. Technically tied for sixth, tied for fifth, I guess you would say, on 0 points. There's another chart that they are producing, and it's somewhat helpful because if you just look at the previous chart, they don't tell you how many races a team has raced, and you need to know the win-loss thing, which this chart does. You can tell that they don't say directly, but it's the Kiwis are 3-0. Ineos Britannia is 2-0 because these teams haven't all raced the same number of races. Alinghi Red Bull Racing 2-1, and so on.
Yeah, they do say that.
Sorry, the number on the right is the points, not the number of losses. So you need to see the number of losses as well. So you got to count up the dots in this case. Now, one of the problems is they're sending out press releases. And they're attaching videos, which is nice, YouTube videos, to those press releases. But this is what it looks like here in the States. So imagine you're not a FOSI, you're not one of us, and you get this press release, and that big black square, in fact, multiple black squares show up in the press release. And why? Well, it's because it's all geo-blocked here in the States until they show it live a day later. They show it live on ESPN Plus. They showed it live behind the paywall, but then a day later they can show it on YouTube and so on. Crutonic. I'm sorry. So let's talk about what happened today. And Luca, maybe you can help us with the Italian translation because this is from Sky Sport Italia, and it's in Italian, and it's the cool race, really the best race of the series so far, the 2 days between the Italians and the Americans. Here is a summary of that race.
Vuole portar via dalla linea American Magic e accelerare al momento giusto. 3 secondi e ci riesce,
lo porta fuori.
Riesce.
Grande partenza. A sinistra è andata Luna Rossa, a destra va Patriot. Vediamo il distacco, sono 17 secondi il vantaggio alla primo gate da parte di Luna Rossa. Hanno guadagnato 100 metri, da 250 siamo passati a 350 metri. Sono in boa, partito il cronometro, 17 secondi era il vantaggio alla boa precedente.
Vedremo American
adesso.
Magic se sceglie l'altro gate.
uguale, 17 secondi, invariato il vantaggio di Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, 270 metri quando si sta andando verso il gate 3. Hanno superato.
Okay, Luca, we all know how this ends with the Americans, 300 meters or so behind, but what are they saying in Italian? Anything interesting?
No, I mean, they were talking like supporters, like tifosi, as they call them in Italy, and yeah, they were excited that Italy managed to park the U.S. boat and won the start. You got an issue there, you know. Match racing is a fine art that requires huge rehearsal, and there is no more good match racing, and nor Slingsby nor Goodison are match racers. The Italians are very aged match racers. The Kiwis are much younger, and they have learned a lot about it. And so it'll be interesting to see how all this develops, if American Magic will learn the skills of match racing and use their younger age for their benefit, because it will be a tiring event to go through, and youth will pay off. So it's interesting, even though what is very surprising in this cup cycle is the small amount of training they've done, and with such complex boats, none of these boats is actually raced to its full potential, and it's all about systems, and yeah, we can't really understand much when we see the boats. The American boats looks beautiful, at least the hull shape, but the hulls don't really matter. Otherwise, the English boat would be 5 knots slower than everybody else, and because it's so much bigger and ugly. But it's only 17% of the drag, and all the rest is foils and systems, and there is all this gray area of electronics and what you can and cannot do, and how do you coordinate everything. And so I think American Magic has done a great job on designing the hull and possibly the foils and everything, but possibly Luna Rossa's got better systems and better coordination among the systems, and mechanically also is a little bit better and uses less energy, because the cyclers in these boats, they're really pushed to the limit. They have an average output of, let's say, 1,500 watts, but they peak at 2.7, 2.8. And yeah, this is all the energy you have, and they're pretty spent at the end of the regatta to move the sails. And this unstable boat gets only stable because you keep on trimming the traveler and boat travelers and the angle of the mast and so on and so forth. So if you're more efficient in creating energy and managing the energy, and your systems are more efficient mechanically, so they use less energy, you have an advantage, and you're more stable and you maneuver better. And then the rule, you know, there's a gray area of the rule, depends how much you push that in coordinating the systems. Yeah, you have the winning elements there, which are very difficult for us to understand. But I believe Luna Rossa there has done a fabulous job, and that's where the Americans are training a little bit, even though I like their boat more than the one of the Italians.
Interesting analysis. Thank you. I'm going to go back and look at that start again. Unfortunately, this Italian clip doesn't show. We watched it this morning in the replay, because not only did they get held out, that is, the Americans got held out by Spitfire, by Jimmy Spithill, above the pin end of the line. And then when the Americans came through and dipped, they kind of did a double dip. The first time through, they didn't fully get on the
double dip.
They didn't get on the fully on the pre-start side, and you don't see that in this video. You just see them being held out, and I'm going to stop it. I think there they are, being held out nicely by Luna Rossa, by Jimmy Spithill, who's on the helm there on the starboard side, and there are the Americans to windward of the pin. There's the pin, and the Americans to windward of it, and they got to come down, Luca.
Yeah, they had to do a double dip, because the first time they hadn't crossed the line, so they couldn't start, and then they had to come down again. So they lost quite a bit. They stayed quite in touch, but these are regattas that don't count, so we don't really know how much Luna Rossa was holding back or not. I believe these two boats will do the Louis Vuitton finals, and then it will be all on with the Kiwis that have a nice boat, simple systems, pretty bulletproof, and fantastic sailors. So it'll be interesting to see. At the moment, I see Luna Rossa a little bit favored versus the American boat, but there still are 2 weeks before the points start counting.
Rob Fry's asking why I'm not using the English commentary on that particular video. That was the video that came up. I hadn't seen any others. And remember, we got this geo-blocking going on here in this country. So I've been able to dig out a number of videos, but not all the English language ones that I would like, Rob Fry. It's really a shame in terms of promotion of the sport that we are not having free to air on YouTube worldwide, so you can just look at this, and it is sad. Now, here's another race. This is the first race yesterday. The first interesting race was on day one. It was when LRPP lost the boat, and they had started. They were very close together, and then apparently the software on the boat went down, and they had to reboot the boat. It only took them, strangely, Luca, it only took them about 20 seconds to reboot the boat, and then they were back running again. And then their coach boat called and said, "Hey, excuse me, are you retiring?" And that was a clear signal from Philippe Presti and the coach boat that they should retire so that they can check everything and get going for the next one.
So that was interesting. It was very interesting, that little short part of the racing. First of all, the Kiwis won the start by a little bit.
Yep.
And then possibly Luna Rossa had a marginally better VMG upwind. And then, they lost the boat. What did happen there? We don't know. I mean, they did a nosedive, and then everything shut down. Well, did they have an electrical failure, a software failure? Did they do a mistake in the attack and the system stopped to kind of got in a protection mode? I have no idea, to be quite honest.
Well, I'll tell you one more theory, and this is my one here. So it's more than my speculation. There has been for months now a discussion going on between the challengers as a group and the Defender about whether the Defender should be racing in the Louis Vuitton Cup, which starts next Thursday, as Mark Holland or Chris Exley, Chris Exley pointing out here. And the challengers do not want the Kiwis getting a bead on them, as we say, getting a look at them, getting to see how fast they are or not relative to the Kiwis, because you never know if the Kiwis are sandbagging or not in any of these races. So the challengers have been saying, no, we don't want you in these races. And there may be, behind the scenes, one hears there is, a discussion that has gone on, and the challengers have decided not to race in earnest against the Kiwis. And that's what some people assert happened yesterday, that they got through the starting line, they had a pretty close race developing, and all of a sudden an electronic snafu on the Italian boat, and they couldn't race the rest of the race. Then today, the Brits here on day two were racing, and in the pre-start, famously, they got luffed a little bit, and they just happened to fall off the foils. We fell off the foils just before the start, and once again, it was race over. The Kiwis sailed away all by themselves. No racing from the challengers. And here is a little video about that, and then also we have a second video from the perspective of the Brits. So let's watch both of these.
Heel here. Let's go. My wheel. 2, 1, going on. 25. Yep, my wheel.
Looks Team New Zealand right in the dirty air there of Ineos Britannia as they come in towards the start here with 45 to go.
They're on 2.
Still a lot of time to go, 43 seconds. Need to do something.
Not carrying that much. Hang board. Take tack with us. Forward down. 2, 1, 3.
Emirates Team New Zealand will match here and try and lock Ineos Britannia to windward here. They're slow off the foils.
bottoms here.
Big trouble for Ineos Britannia here.
It's coming right under Big Easy's blades.
Expect a huge lead from Emirates Team New Zealand here.
Okay, Luca, I'll stop it there. They fell off the foils, that is the Brits, and the Kiwis sailed away. Race over again at the start. Was that an error? Was that whose error? Or were they just saying, you know, let them go?
Who knows? I mean, the English team has got a bit of an issue with their boat. They're kind of in the game 2 weeks ago. Then they did some mods to the foils. They made the boat slow, so they're trying to go back, but the rule limits the amount of changes you can do to the foils to 20%. So what you grow, you cannot really reverse completely. So they have now a new configuration, and I think they're quite keen to find out if they are competitive or not. They seemed a little slower when they sailed against American Magic, but then again, not that much slower. So I don't know. I mean, as I say, you might be right, but yeah, it is a bit strange that they fell off the foil like that. But I wouldn't know, to be quite honest.
Well, I don't either for sure, and we're going to show you another video
Yeah,
now.
so it was a frustrating day for us.
I'll start that again. This is the explanation from the team, a video they put out just before we went to air.
Yeah, so it was a frustrating day for us, I guess, today racing against the Kiwis. We were on the back foot off the start, unfortunately, poorly executed, I guess, what we were trying to do. After that, it'll be interesting to look and see, I guess, from the timings around the rest of the course, how we stuck in there and get a read on performance against those guys. Good to have a little session afterwards, just working on our own boat handling skills and also working on some of those pre-start manoeuvre executions to be in a better place for racing tomorrow. Tomorrow's a busy day for us. We'll have the 2-race day tomorrow. So yeah, kind of consolidate our learnings from the last 2 days, and then yeah, looking forward to get out there again tomorrow.
Reaction to that? Kind of nothing, right?
I see a very clear ranking among the boats. So of the challengers, Luna Rossa and the Americans, then you have a step down Ineos, 2 steps down Alinghi, and the French, they didn't sail enough. Just they can't sail the boat simply. They don't have enough time to get good at the game, so their boat doesn't work. Well, the team doesn't work. They just didn't sail enough.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Now there's one more little factoid here that I've got to add, and that is that in the Kiwis' 3rd race today against Orient Express, the French didn't even show up, and no report of what their problem was. And it's a very strange kind of reporting here. And Richard Gladwell, who's down in Auckland, and is a very smart fellow, he wrote this saying, the low point of the day came in the final race. His whole article was about how kind of boring the racing's been and non-racing. The low point of the day came in the final race where the French withdrew because of an unspecified technology problem. Luna Rossa did the same yesterday on the first leg. In both races, ETNZ was the beneficiary and leads the overnight leaderboard with 3 wins as a result. So I'm telling you all who are watching, and Luca and Julia, something fishy's going on here. Something strange is going on. The Kiwis go out to race, and the team's software fails. The Kiwis go out to race the Brits, and they fall off their foils. The Kiwis go out to race the French, and they don't show up. It's going to be, regardless, it's going to be very interesting tomorrow to see what happens in their matches going forward against the Americans and the Swiss.
But Tom, in all honesty, the French have had problems where they couldn't go training very many days because their systems weren't working. So these are extremely complicated boats. Yes, they got the design from the Kiwis, but they didn't get all the systems and the foils. And yeah, I mean, it is possible that they couldn't sail. I am not sure. I mean, but obviously, in the case of Luna Rossa, they'd seen enough and they didn't need to see any more. So they then stopped there. So
What do you think of the British boat? John Emmett is asking. Do you think the Brits are more competitive uprange, 15 plus knots?
They seem fast downwind, not so fast upwind. And altogether, it seemed that they haven't really learned from the past Cup. They have a boat that has too many complicated systems, and they haven't really made the wonder boat that they were aiming at. So as I say, I believe that Luna Rossa is clearly ahead, and the Americans, and then there is a step down to these guys. I don't think they have any chance, but we'll see.
Let's talk, Julia, go ahead.
No, I've been a fan of the Luna Rossa from the start. They've looked good to me from the very start.
You like their livery.
I do.
And you like them coming in and out of the tacks, you've said.
Yep.
And?
No, and their speed.
And their speed.
Yeah.
Luca, we'll come back and talk about your Italian, I mean, it's not your team, but you're an Italian by birth, and talk about it in a minute. But the hard question now about what's going on the Brit boat, because today it sounded like from the onboard audio like there was a little disagreement about whether they could hook, that is the Brits, whether they could hook the Kiwis or not. And Dylan Fletcher had a bit of a, yeah, we can, against Sir Ben, who said, no, we can't, or vice versa. I now don't remember. There's also reports that there's been a bit of an internal struggle, and we know that Giles Scott, who we thought was going to race on that boat, then he went off to do Sail GP. And then just before the regatta started, it's announced that Dylan Fletcher is going to be the B helm or the port helm, and Sir Ben is going to be the starboard helm, and Giles Scott's off the boat as the head director of sailing or whatever his title is. What's going on there, do you think? Do you care to offer us any insight or an opinion?
You know, managing a team of that proportion with so much money, so much people, trying to mix yacht designers with Formula One designers, it's a very tough job. And I rate Ben Ainsley very highly as a sailor. I think he's a bad manager, and trying to do everything never works, you know, and he should focus just on sailing and be the best at it. And yeah, I mean, he's pretty, you know, he gets angry pretty badly, and
we saw him leave his fin and attack a photographer in one regatta at a world championship. Where was that? You must have been there. Where did that happen?
I got a match race in the Rule 69 protest with him in the Europeans in Turkey when he started. And I know it's difficult to believe, but I did park him twice, and he took a paddle out and threatened to kill me. And so he got a Rule 69, and we mentioned to World Sailing and to the Royal Yachting Association, but wasn't disqualified. And I was pretty upset about that, because I thought if I would have taken a paddle and threatened to kill a competitor I was match racing for winning the Europeans, I would have had a 2-year ban, but that's another story. So, yeah, he's a fiery character, and that was the fuel that made him the greatest sailor of all times in single-handed boats. At the same time, that might not be the characteristics that makes you the best manager in America's Cup teams. So it's and he possibly doesn't have the technical knowledge to do that, because he's not an engineer like Russell Coutts. Or a boat builder. So it's a very difficult and complicated job. And I believe even for the owners, it's very difficult to select somebody to lead your America's Cup team, because these multiple medalists are strong characters, they're charismatic, they're clever, they're charming, and you don't know what you're doing, because running an America's Cup team is a very specific job that very few know how to do, and that's why Coutts was so good, and so I believe the English team should have a different structure.
Well, you ran a team, you ran the Plus 39 team, and that was tough going, because you were a day late and a dollar short, sort of like the French are this time. So you know about running a team.
But I adopted a completely different philosophy. I wanted to valorize young sailors, and I put as a precondition that I wouldn't sail. So within the pretty pathetic budget that we had, I could choose the best, and I didn't have to justify my performance and I would act as a neutral coach. And yeah, in all team sports, you know, a player coach never works. And so here we have a player that not only coaches but runs everything, and that can't work, you know, because it's not modern, it's not professional. You know, you need specific skills for each and every department, and you need to know your limits. And this is where I believe the structure of the English team is not a winning structure, and this is why they will fail again.
You know, as you know, and all the FOSI that have been our regulars on the show, Julia, you know, I've been saying this now for some time. In fact, I've been saying about the CEO, the non-sailing CEO at World Sailing, now US Sailing, and they're both gone. And with all due respect to Ben, who's the most decorated Olympian in our sport, fabulous sailor, he helped rescue our team here in 2013, BMW Oracle Racing, or whatever we were called there, Oracle Team USA. And he stepped on the boat in place of John Kostecki, a local hero, and had a lot to do with us coming back and winning that series 9-8. I have absolute respect for him, but it is such a specialized game, as you say, Luca, and I think you get the diplomatic award for today. We're going to run you for the Secretary General of the United Nations when this show is over.
Yes.
Because I agree. I think the guy is fabulous, but he's got too much to do. He's trying to run the design program, run the PR program, keep his principal sponsors and benefactors happy, and sail on the boat, and keep a Sail GP team going. So I'm saying that the sailing CEO should go. I'm saying to Sir Ben, and I have been for some weeks, saying, Sir Ben, for the good of your team and the good of your country, and it's probably too late, but you still ought to step away. You've got two really fine sailors in Giles Scott and Dylan Fletcher. Let them tussle for who's A skipper or A helm and B helm, and go for it. What do you think, Luca?
You know, Ben is such an incredible sailor, and he's so competitive that he might make some magic in the starts and stuff like that at the right time. I see the problem more in the work done in the past that leads to have not such a effective boat. And so the America's Cup is always won by the fastest boat, and I don't believe their boat is fast enough. So whatever you do now in terms of changing the crew, one goes, one comes, nobody will make that boat win. But as I say, I might be completely wrong, and it's so difficult, if you're honest, to judge these boats, because it's all about the systems, the foil profiles, the coordination about all these moving parts. You know, the way they keep this boat stable is by changing the angle of the foil arm, by moving the foils, by moving the travelers in and out in sync of jib and main, by changing the rotation of the mast, doing that with a limited amount of energy. It's a fascinating game, but we can't really understand what makes a boat faster and what is not, if we are honest. Yeah, so we can only observe, and I believe they don't have the speed edge. And Ben says exactly the same. They say they're lacking horsepower, they're not fast enough upwind, and they never have been. So there is not enough time, and the rules have been set in a way to favor those who had an advantage in the previous Cup. Not very many training days, one boat only, not a lot of foils, and so on and so forth. That you can't really change anything once you've taken your decisions. You have what you have, and yeah, I mean, you probably have no chance with that boat.
Yeah, look at the comments coming in. John Emmett, with whom I've spoken a little bit about this, but yeah, after 2 days, you could see Ben's face in the video that he had an interview on board the yacht yesterday after the race, and he said, "Look, we're going to go back to the team base and try to find some more pace, some more speed." And others are saying, T. Hutch, Chris Exley is saying up above there, T. Hutch learned that lesson in the last Cup, trying to sail and run the campaign. And it's going much better this time. And Julia, you and I have talked about it. Kayard, we had a great campaign for St. Francis Yacht Club in 2000. Kayard was the chief cook and bottle washer.
Right.
and
leader.
Well, he was trying to drive the boat, steer the boat. He was trying. God, use the word drive. He's skippering, and he was the CEO of the campaign, and he's raising the money.
Yeah.
And he had Buddha, the late great Bob Billingham, and myself, and a couple other key people, but it's too much. And he figured it out. Dennis Conner figured it out that I can't be everything. I got to go play golf with my backers, the people I'm raising money from, and I can't go out sailing all day. So Kenny Reed, you sail the boat.
Yeah.
Or Paul Kayard, I'm going to be on the boat, but you're going to steer, which is what mostly happened in '95. So other people have figured it out. I loved what you said, Luca, when you said a player coach in this day and age in modern sports rarely works. You said it never works, but I mean,
we have though another very fascinating part of the Cup, which is, the houseman. It's like the Lord of the Ring. You want the ring, you want to steer the boat, and there is all the dynamic connected to the salaries of these sailors. And I mean, let's be very honest. The money that some of them get paid in the Americas, they would not make in anything else they do in their life. So then it changes the way they defend their position, and it leads to diabolical interactions that destroy the teams. And as usual, the best run teams are the ones that win. And you got the Kiwis with Grant Dalton. You can love or hate Grant Dalton, but he's a great manager. And even when Russell was selling for the Kiwis, he had a manager. And in Luna Rossa, you have Max Sirena, that has, though, done his schooling with the Kiwis when they did that deal to help them out in 2013. And then he was part of the Kiwi team, and then they created the new rules, and he had the first design package and all the rest of it. And he has slowly molded the Italian team in a very non-Italian way. When you look at all the technical side of Luna Rossa, you see a lot of highly competent, very well-schooled engineers. None of them is a superstar, and they work well as a team, as you see the end product. Where Italy is a little bit weak is on the sailing team, because Spittil and Keiko, they're great sailors, fantastic sailors, but Keiko is over 50, so that's where
they're too old, aren't they? This is a young person, John Emmett, saying the same thing.
And Tita just won the Olympics in NACRA, but he can't match race. He has no idea of match racing. To the point that when they were nearly winning the pre-event, they didn't want to race the last race because their system melted down. It was heating up, so it was dangerous. And they wanted to get Presti to tell them a few moves on how to do a start. Well, if you do that and you go against the Kiwis, they will fry you. So that's where Italy has got a bit of an issue. And a lot of countries have the same issue. The Swiss don't have really excellent sailors with the nationality rule. So they have good sailors, but they're not at the level of Burling and so on. So, winning the Cup is a very complicated game, and with these boats even more. And they didn't have time. If you start sailing a laser, it'll take you years to do perfect tacks. And these guys can sail 70 days, and then they must get 100% out of the boat. It's bloody impossible.
Yeah, John Emmett's agreeing with you. John's saying very few are at the level of Burling, and Nathan Outteridge for that matter, and exactly right. And it's going to be interesting to see if Tommy Spithill,
they
Tommy
have the right age. They have the right mentality. There was an interview of Burling a few days ago, and he's of an age that is, too different to my age, so I don't really know him as a sailor. The other ones I raced against all of them, but he's bloody tough. I mean, it's like going in boxing against a pro, and he's going to break your nose. And they don't leave any prisoners, so they are still the favorites from the technical side and from the sailing side. And the challengers can hope that they've done a better job in the systems and all the rest of it. Where I think Luna Rossa's got also an advantage is in the sails. They have slightly different sails, which is something you can do with no sails. And they have actually a very good sail designer that I had in my team 20 years ago. It was a very young kid from Argentina, and Argentina is in the North Technology Group. Yes and no, because that's the only loft that they didn't buy out. So they have access to Minden in Nevada, but they're a little different. And they're really good. So I believe their sales are a tiny bit better, but who am I to say, I mean, and they have also a different setup of the
It's great, Julia. It's great how Luca puts a little, not a dagger, but he puts a little bit of twist of information. Everybody's sitting here, me included, and everybody. That's pretty. And then he says, "But who am I to know?"
If you look at the Italians, they have the mast setup is a little bit like in a star or in some cats. So the lower shrouds are really tight, and the top ones are pretty flexed, pretty soft. You can see that when you see the boat sailing to leeward, they are really slack. And the spreaders move back and forth. And so the kind of mast, when the gust comes, deflects a little bit to leeward. And so they've really done a lot of work on the fine tuning. They've basically kept the advantage they had in the previous Cup, and with such little training, the other ones really struggled to run after them.
Well, I think you're right. And that's also probably what is because Terry Hutchinson now is off the boat and he's running the campaign, and they have all the experience of the last campaign management as well as technical. But I think your earlier point about how important smart people manage. Well, Julia, you were a headhunter. This is your game.
Right.
I think I know I'm the only person in the sport, Luca, who's worked for the 3 C's and the D. Modern day America's Cup managers, Connor, Coots, and Kayard and Coots, and Dixon. Chris Dixon, who managed a bunch of campaigns himself, and I had Max. We had Max Serena in our campaign in 2010 in the Trimaran campaign, helping us in Valencia. So I know Max pretty well, and the management styles of each of those people was pretty different. But Coots and Connor, interestingly, in my mind, and I've said this many times before, not just now, the most similar, because they both have engineering brains.
Say they're engineers,
and they're bright guys who are superb managers. And Kayard's a bit of a one-man band. He's going to be, and I think he's learned to delegate. But those other guys, Dennis walked in one time, Luca. I've told Julia this story. I'm the 95 campaign, and we're being protested for our keel is little something. And everybody on the team has got their cojones in an uproar. We're all twisted up about this. I'm the rules guy who's having to come up with a defense. Long story short, I come up with a plan, and I think was a pretty good plan. Tom Whidden comes in and talks to me a little bit about it. He says, "Well, that sounds pretty good." And Tom was very helpful and helped to guide me and help think and ask questions. Dennis came in and asked one question. "Are you going to win this protest or not?" And I said, "Well, Dennis, I want to explain to you what I'm thinking." And he said, "You don't have to. I wouldn't have you here if I didn't think you were the best in the business to do this. Are you going to win it or not?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Do you need more resources? Do you need more people? Do you need more money? Do you need more?" I said, "No, Dennis, I think I got this under control." "Good. I'm going to dinner with some people that are going to give us some money, so I'm going to go raise more money so that after you win the protest, we can then go on and win the Cup." "Okay, Dennis, thank you." And I'll tell you what, I was so motivated.
Yeah.
I was so highly motivated by Dennis coming in and having the confidence, but also just kind of, saying, "I don't want to hear all your, argumentation."
Right.
And I'll tell you, one time we had a major in the picture behind me in the Trimaran days, and we were in training in San Diego. Long story short, Stingray knows this story. He was on here, and I saw Coots. We had a major, and it was a rules-related thing, but also Mark Turner Tugboat was going to have to rebuild the boat, and it was a major. And I'm not really even at liberty to talk about it at this stage. When I write my book, maybe. But long story short, Coots came over to my office. I'm in a container, in a trailer someplace, and he said, "Tom, the whole campaign depends on you. It's on your shoulders. You've got to make this happen. It's got to work. Well, Russell, I'm doing my, he said, you can't just do your best. It's got to happen. And I have complete confidence in you. If there's anything you need, let me know. Then I saw him because I kind of oh my God. I wanted to explain to him and bounce. No. Then I watched him go over to Mark Turner, and he was out in the yard, and Mark Turner, the head of our shore patrol and boat building operator, and he said, Mark, and he said the same thing to Mark. He's kind of tapping on his chest almost. Two Kiwis, one Kiwi to another. Mark, this whole campaign is resting on your shoulders. You've got to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And you know what? We did. Mm-hmm. And it's leadership like that. And I suspect right now, poor Ben, who's probably capable of it, but I think he's just so bloody tired from doing, you know what it's like to go out on the water all day and get prepared and then go out, do the team meetings, the sailing team meetings, go out in the sun and the water and yada, yada. He's got to get off the boat and let these other guys, probably too late, but I think he's got to try to do it.
No, I think he has to continue steering the boat. I mean, it's his campaign. He's done it the way he thinks is right. And he's got to prove it all. He's got to prove us all wrong and try to win the cup. I mean, possibly it's his last campaign in this position. I don't think if he fails again that they'll find another one that's going to give him hundreds of millions to repeat the same. I mean, so it's. I think we have to wait. And I mean, the guy is so good that he might surprise us. Though I believe the boat isn't good enough. So, and it might even be his fault. For what we know, but we don't know. But let's see. I mean, the cup is fascinating because it only happens that day, in that condition. And again, not only they did not have time to train, but they trained in completely different conditions they'll find when it really matters. Barcelona, they had wonderful sea breezes all summer. You're not going to have that in September, and you're certainly not going to have that in November.
Exactly.
In November is a disastrous venue with no wind or too much wind, swell, bouncing waves. And I mean, they had a ILCA World Championship there, and it was just horrible. They had to race at 7 o'clock in the morning to have a little bit of breeze, and so this is going to get very tough for who gets all the way to the end to keep your mind together and be focused and be sharp. And the days are going to get extra long because there's going to be no wind, and you're going to be out on these boats, and you're going to get seasick because of the tension. And so that's where I believe youth is absolutely key. And that's where the Kiwis have another advantage. So not only they have robust systems and a good design, and they're a very cohesive team, but they have the youngest guys. But let's say the cup is the cup. It's fabulous, and we have to see who does it right in the right moment. But the conditions will be different. And
it's later in October, not November, as Stingray's pointing out. I think it is under any circumstances. It's over by October 29th, I think, it's the final cutoff date.
But end of October, you got no wind there.
No,
I spent years there before the '92 Olympics, and I can tell you, October's got nothing to do with July and August.
Do you still?
It's completely different.
Do you still have your sailing academy in Valencia, which of course is just down the coast and has the same?
No, I stopped coaching. I'm running a big project. I'm running my yard. And I've hang on the boots in my coaching career. I've done that long enough. I have had great satisfaction. I mean, actually, when Hungary won the Star Sailors League, that's a guy that coached for 6 years, and he called me straight away after winning. He was a little bit drunk, I could say. That is a very moving call. So that part of my life has been fabulous, but it's past, and now I'm doing something else.
Okay, let's take a quick last look at these teams and the boats, and give us your kind of the lightning round, your one sentence impression of each of these teams, starting with the French.
Not enough time, not enough experience. I mean, showing up at the cup like that, very difficult. Heads down for them to try, but they have to try again, and maybe next time they will have a chance.
Okay, how about the Brits? Final thoughts on the Brits?
Yeah, they had too many resources and they ended up confusing themselves, and their boat is not fast enough.
Okay. Olingi Red Bull Racing, the Swiss.
Well, interesting comeback of Ernesto, but the team lacks, does not have a winning leader, so they are not good enough.
New York Yacht Club's American Magic.
They really have a chance if they get their systems to work as well as Luna Rossa. That's the question. So it's all, electronics, everything, coordinating all the systems and maneuvering better. Their straight line speed is there. The design is fabulous of the hull, but, they're a little bit behind at the moment. They might catch up.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli.
Possibly the best prepared team of all, even Team New Zealand. The big question mark is if they hold it together.
And finally, the Kiwis as the defender.
Yeah, I mean, they're tough. They're well prepared. Maybe not so much budget. That could be their weak link. If they race against Luna Rossa or American Magic, it'll be a close match race.
Okay.
But they are the favorites.
Yeah, I think most everybody agrees. Julie, you agree they're the favorites?
You know that I've always...
You like Luna Rossa.
I have. I'm sorry.
One other thing that Dennis told me, he said, Tom, we've all got great weaknesses. Forget about people's weaknesses. Look at people's strengths. Hire people for their strengths. When I was trying to put up together a little rules department, and I was running the cup there, and he said, forget about minimize their weaknesses. Get people involved for their strengths. Find people with great strengths. And I see
there's something I'd like to add there, Tom. So here we have these fabulous boats. They're technologically extraordinary. They go very, very fast. But they're really bad boats for match racing. There are no passing lanes. We haven't had one single boat passing another one.
Yeah, we did. We had a couple of passes in the early go of yesterday.
Yeah, but you understand what I say, yeah? And where we go back, what makes a difference is the starts and so on, which is the closest thing to the old style sailing we're doing. And I don't know if we're fooling ourselves. It's not by going faster that we make the sport more interesting. It's by having close contact and passing lines and real racing and seeing the people. And I might be old-fashioned, but to see these guys with helmets and glasses, it's idiotic. I mean, I love to see the sailors doing their job, coordinating, like in the Cup in Valencia, 17 people maneuvering and everything, and enjoying the sea and not being tucked down inside something like that. So yes, it is extraordinary. It's fantastic. But what are we doing to the sport? And by the way, this is not something that young kids can do. This is not something that normal people can do. This is so niche and so exclusive that, it's more far away than what Formula One is to a normal car that you go to work every day.
It's just
point. A different world.
Yes.
So
I agree.
Let's just say that again. Hold that thought.
Changes
for America's Cup. Hey, hang on, Luca. Hang on. And everybody's we're getting comments out the yin yang here. People saying agree, brother Luca. Well said. Yada. Let's just hold that thought and write it down. Clark, if you'll write it down. Julia, if you got a note over there. Mm-hmm. Formula One cars are closer to our driving experience, our automobile driving experience, than these boats are to our sailing experience. Mm-hmm. That is a really, I think, great point, Luca. Spot on, sir.
Yeah, and you see the same happen to Olympic sailing. We have had the merchants taking over the organization. They told us the tale that kite surfing will make the sport so popular and everybody will love it, and foiling NACRAs will be sensational. And you end up with the bees athletes winning the games, and NACRA shouldn't even be an international class because nobody sells the goddamn thing. And there are 50 crews in the world, and the average age is high and is super expensive. We're destroying the sport. So, you know, there is room for everybody. There's room for this niche, elite, super fast sport, and I am actually involved in something like that, and I love it. But sailing is something else, and I fear that if we continue having this as the example, well, we're killing the sport because this cannot be duplicated in a yacht club, you know. So it's when you go to the yacht club in Valencia, you see lasers, you see snipes, you see the traditional boats. You don't see foiling madness everywhere, you know. So it's and the numbers are not there, and the mediaticity is not there. I mean, the Olympics were a disaster, you know, ununderstandable new formats, and we did all that. And we got told it was done in the name of the IOC. Well, the IOC president came to Santander, to the world, and said, you have a wonderful sport, don't change anything. And that was Thomas Bach.
And then we changed half the classes.
Yes, and none of them is successful except maybe a little bit the IQ foil. But then again, you have a huge problem because they're all so fat. I mean, the female fleet, there is an article of the Spanish female Olympian, 10-time world champion in windsurfing. And she says it's an embarrassment to see the fellow athletes. We can't go out in a bikini. It's disgusting.
I ran that article. Luca, you sent me that article. I ran that on the show. Some of the FOSI will remember two or three weeks ago.
So now they're thinking of reducing sail area to get the ladies to be a little bit lighter. But then there will be the result that they're not going to take off until the wind is stronger. So then you limit the range again. And so untested equipment put in just because some interested party promotes a campaign and our organization is taken over by people with vested interests. It's crazy. I mean, it's just not right. You know what I mean? We should go back to properly respecting our rules. It has to be an international class. It has to be raised. It has to have a bit of a pedigree, and then you can use it.
And has to have an existing worldwide distribution, not, this boat's going to be so cool, everybody's going to want to buy one from our merchants who are, by the way, paying a royalty to World Sailing.
Well, yeah, but a very small royalty. The biggest royalty they pay to themselves in some offshore company. But that's a different story.
Well, it's true.
They wouldn't try to take over. They wouldn't try to take over our sport, and that's the problem we've had. So now we are in a little bit of a changing phase, as the organization, surprisingly enough, is possibly healing herself with new blood and new people. So the next elections are going to be key to see if what we stand for, which is a sport for an intellectual elite that creates decision makers, that has a tuitional value, that is fabulous and expresses freedom and going at sea, and it's modern, sustainable, and green, or we are still in the hand of merchants. And I hope that the change will happen and we will get to a better place.
Do you have a favorite? John Emmett is asking who we think among those presidential candidates that we're hearing about.
I mean, I owe Jacques Rogge my first Olympics. I was at the 1995 Gold Cup in Australia, and I had to finish top 8. And I was coming away from racing crying because I had lockings in my knee and I didn't know what I had. And then a gentleman came close to me and said, "May I look at your knee?" And I said, "Yes, but who are you?" He said, "I'm a knee surgeon. I operate 250 knees a year. I operate first league football players and second league football players in Belgium." And he looks at my knee and he says, "You have a broken meniscus." I said, "Yeah, but I have my trials in a month." He said, "It's not a problem. I will serve your knee. Come to my house in a week and I'll take care of you." And so I went there and I didn't know who the hell he was. You know, he was Jacques Rogge. And I went there. I was hosted up at his house like a fellow fin sailor. He surged my knee And then he came to my room in his house and threw me the piece of meniscus he'd taken out informally and said, "Where are you going training?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to Barcelona." And the guy said, "That's perfect because we have an IOC board meeting in Andorra in 12 days. So I'll see you at the airport." I said, "Well, what are you doing there?" Like, "I'm in the IOC," and so on and so forth. and I said, "Well, that's interesting. So I'll be there." And so he came there. They had a limo of the IOC, and I was there. I had a bit of a swollen knee. He looked at it. He said, "Yeah, you have some fluid in your knee." He took a syringe out in the middle of the parking lot. He pulled the fluid out. He threw it on the floor. He said, "I give you a cortisone shot." I said, "Hang on a minute, but that's doping." No. I give you the dispensation because it's for medical reasons. We can give you a hydrocortisone shot here. You need that, and you'll do well in your trials. And I did actually manage to go to the Olympics. At that time, I was crazy in love with too many girls, and I did very badly at the Olympics. But we became great friends. And so when the Olympics in Sydney came, I got an email from him, and he said, "Luca, I've asked the actual IOC president, Samaranch, to be the one that awards the medals at the Finn medal ceremony." I said, "I'll be there, Jacques." And then when it really happened, I mean, for me, it was like God putting the medal around my neck. Now, his son, Philippe, I spent many months training together.
Hold on, Luca, because you and I know who we're talking about here. I have had dinner at Jackie Roga's house in Belgium, because he was a Finn sailor, and he was president of the Belgian Yachting Federation. He ended up as the an IOC member from Belgium. Then he ended up succeeding Samaranch as president. You haven't said that. Of the IOC.
Yeah, okay. So then he became president of the IOC.
President. Now, he wasn't treating you. He wasn't president yet when he was treating you, but he was in the chain going up and a very popular guy.
Yeah, and when he got president of the IOC, he made a special party with his closest friends. And we got invited, me and my actual wife, to Belgium. There are 50 people there. There was King Constantine. There was Eddie Merckx, the famous biker from Belgium, and me and my wife. And I always had him as a reference because he was a gentleman, he was honest, he loved the sport, and he was coherent with his ideas, and he paid a price for it. But he searched my knee when I needed, just because of friendship for a sailor, not even knowing who the hell I was. His son was a great friend of mine, and we sailed and lived together and traveled together for years. And then he became, for his own merits, a very highly respected executive. He was CEO of Microsoft in China. He was CEO of Microsoft in East Europe. He was CEO of Vodafone Germany until a few months ago. And
this is Philippe Roga, his son, with whom I've known since he was like 10.
He was in the events committee. He was the first one that created the Athletes Forum. He then was the Belgian responsible for the Olympics in Beijing 2008, and then he had this very successful career as a highly rated executive. He speaks 5 languages, and he's a passionate sailor. His passion is as strong as mine, if not even stronger. And when he decided to run, I thought the sky was opening up. I could see the light at the end of a really dark time, and I really hope he's going to make it, because we need people of this level, of the culture, of the competence and the passion and the honesty, the intellectual honesty to run the sport. And what we have had in the last 15 years has been disastrous for our sport. And I really hope that Philippe will bring, but we don't know if he's going to win. He's all highly politicized. There are 4 candidates. One is Canadian Ben Remocker. He's an employee of the 49er class. He's what I would say one of the merchants that took the sport down the drain. I don't know how he can run. We have Rodion Luka, a 49er sailor from Ukraine. I think they have bigger issues than running for president of the organization. And we have the Chinese that is not a sailor, and doesn't speak English. So, you know, I hope that the MNAs will choose Philippe, and I wish him all the best for the campaign. He has my endorsement, he has my support, but I'm not voting, so it is in the hands of the MNAs.
So Philippe Roga is for sure running. You told me that the other day in a comment that I put here on the show.
It's been published by World Sailing. On Monday, I think World Sailing will put out the program with all these candidates. And for me, this is, you know, when we were in the organization, Tom, very many years ago, there was a certain cultural level, you know, the Corinthian spirit was fully adhered by those who were there. And, well, Philippe is exactly the same, but he's modern. He's into technology and he's incredibly clever and elegant and honest. And that for me is very important for the sport. I hope it will save the sport, because to see articles like on the Irish Times or the Guardian on Sailing Anarchy, where they're basically saying that the sport has lost the compass and the north of the compass. And this is exactly what I've always said in these last 15 years. It's something that hurts me a lot as for my passion for the sport.
Well, Matthias Collins, who you must know, sailing sailor from Connecticut, South America, and other points beyond, is saying that list is already out. World Sailing sent him, I think he may be president of the sailing class, or was. World Sailing sent me today the candidates. He may be involved with his MNA in South America.
Yeah, it's already out. It's already out. So the sport has got a unique chance of regrouping. And not only the president run is interesting, but the vice president. And the fact that there is, because of the way the new constitution has been written, there will be 4 female VPs, also opens up the door. There is a wonderful candidate from Mexico to have more MNAs represented. And we got to go back to the basics. We got to make the sport popular. It has, you know, we are not really fulfilling the potential of the sport. You know, we should have hundreds of thousands of people sailing, not a couple of thousand, considering all Olympic classes. And so we should really think differently and have people of a certain standing running the sport that have the love for the sport at heart and not other things. And I see this chance this time around. There are very good candidates, and there are very many that present themselves to run. And I'm hopeful, and I hope that David Graham will stay, because actually I think David Graham can be a good manager. He actually is a good manager when the board is cohesive and run properly and led properly. And so maybe for the first time we can hope for a bright future.
Well, that's great news, and
Yes.
we can tell when you're passionate about something because the camera starts to move a little bit on the table. But we loved your passion.
As I say, the mother is Austrian, but the father was definitely Italian. There's no doubt about that.
We've known each other a long time, Luca, and you ran for vice president last time, didn't win. Too bad you didn't, but probably better for your health and for your business and your family. But if Philippe...
Oh, maybe for the other board member, because I would have strangled them if I was in disagreement. So maybe it wasn't really the right place for me to be.
But if Philippe Roga is... if he is elected, I agree with you 100%. He will be fabulous for our sport going forward. And I just, anything we can do, I'll call him. You ping him, I'll call him and see if he's willing to come on here, come on this show once we get through some of this AC madness. Luca, I should let you go. It's what time there in CET? It's 20
to midnight.
23,
Tom, it's always
38.
a pleasure.
Anything else
It's
on
always a
Marseille?
pleasure.
Anything else on the Cup? Anything else on World Sailing?
No. I mean, Marseille, you know, everybody knew it was a bad venue. And yeah, we could make a little note there. Imagine having a double-handed offshore keelboat out there in no wind. How fabulous that would have been. And that shows either the intellectual dishonesty of those who promoted that or the total incompetence, because everybody knows that in Marseille in summer there is no wind, and especially at night. So or you have some mistral that blows blows your hats off. I mean, I was on a ferry once, and they were 110 kilometers an hour. Well, that wasn't the condition that we could. So can you imagine? We already have a shambolic Olympics, but I mean, can you imagine if that would have come true?
Yeah.
So it's good to have ideas, but they should have a little bit of a base. And you can see my computer is vibrating, and my fin sailor heart is still bleeding.
Yes. Agreed. Yes.
Luca, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. You were wonderful.
And Julia always reminds us to go back and
read all the comments. You'll have a good time reading the comments. And how
Well, I hope they didn't find me more crazy than the last times around.
Oh, awesome is
awesome. Indeed. Alan Long, I think, sums it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Take good care. Have a nice rest of your evening in Poland.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ciao
Bye-bye.
for now.
Bye.
Julia, we are some lucky to have people like Luca in our sport.
Isn't he wonderful? Oh.
He is wonderful. He's a legend, as Blake Middleton is saying. Chris Exley, amazing perspective. Thank you for your openness, transparency, and honesty, and diplomacy, too. He's
Absolutely.
not a flamethrower.
Nope.
He's thoughtful and diplomatic, and he's just, I call him the Sailing Savant. I think I'm the one who he's off the air now, but I think I'm the one who gave him that nickname, and he certainly deserves that, Julia, and more, right? That's
oh, yes.
That's our Sailing Savant, Luca Devoti, who was live via Skype from Poland.
Now, isn't one of our FOSIs from Poland?
I'm sure we have FOSI. Yeah, we have any number of FOSI in Poland. I can name 2 or 3 out off. But I think, again, I don't think we've ever anybody on live from Poland.
Oh, not live.
Of course, Luca's Italian who lives in Spain. So, Rick Bannerow, refreshing, insightful, and straightforward. Another great Sailing Illustrated. John Emmett, the Liege should race in the SB20 class UK. Good. What a great level-headed guy. There's Ken DeVerne. Hello, Ken. And David Price, brilliant, Luca. Pricey saying down, presumably from Sydney, back from the Olympics. And I appreciate it very much. I wanted to get into this topic with him, but we've run out of time, and the other topics, frankly, more interesting from our probably Sailing Illustrated standpoint. But this disaster, I was going to ask Luca. He did tell us in the tech check that you see Perini Navi saying that it was the crew's fault. It was human error, and the Kiwi captain on that boat, who's alive and who was speaking from the hospital, it'll come out. But apparently the boat did go down, Julia, in a hurry. That's the new news from today in The Guardian and other articles. This photo, by the way, I'll back that caption off there, is from a restaurant in that town in Sicily, where you can see the storm coming in. It was taken Sunday night as the storm clouds were gathering. And apparently whatever happened to it, the tornado or being blown over on its side with open doors or lightning strike or something, it did go down in a hurry. And sad that there was a loss of life times, 5? And a lot of interest here now in San Francisco because this guy was just acquitted. The guy who lost his life and was the owner of the boat, and they call him the Bill Gates of the UK.
Oh, right.
He just was acquitted here in a major court action here in San Francisco. Right. So there's also now lots of conspiracy theories about maybe something else happened because his co-defendant, is that the right word? Was also on board this boat and also lost his life in whatever went on. So tallest aluminum mast in the world. Was it? Or was it the second tallest, Chris? Actually, it was big. A willow wall blew it flat, Graham Sweeney is thinking. But in any event, we don't need to get more into that. But we appreciate Luca coming on. Appreciate it very much indeed. Gets us to the last leg, which is just a slide, not another video, because we're, an hour and 43 minutes into this one. And I just want to say that thanks to all of you who have been joining us the last couple mornings. We will do it again tomorrow and Sunday morning at 0500.
Yes.
0500 Pacific, which is 1200 UTC. It's 1400 in Barcelona in Central Europe, CET. Tomorrow's day 3. And on day 3, that last match today, which was supposed to be the Brits and the Swiss, according to all the publicity, that got swapped out for some reason we still don't quite understand. And that is going to be the French. That is going to replace the French-Kiwi match, which was in fact run today. That was the match that the French for which they did not show. And the Kiwis had the, as we would say here in the States in baseball, I guess, a walkover. So that's tomorrow's day 4 schedule. Then after the Swiss and Brits, and I'm not sure the order because they're not going to make the Brits race 2 in a row. They're not going to then have the Brits race the Italians. But the Americans are racing the French, and then the Swiss are racing the Kiwis. So we'll see if the Kiwis show up for that race. Sorry, we'll see if the Swiss show up to race the Kiwis in that race, which is supposedly the last race of the day. Yeah, Hamish Ross saying these races in Barcelona are, oh my God, time in NZL. I think they're at midnight your time, aren't they, Hamish, right now? Midnight, 0500 here, and you're -5 to us at the moment. And then that changes when we go off daylight time and you go on summertime, and the living is easy.
Yes.
So those matches got switched around, and I can't go without telling you who I think is going to win. That match tomorrow, I think the Swiss will beat the Brits. Sorry to say it, Brits, but you all say, what do you think? What do you think? Well, I think the Swiss will beat, that is Alinghi, will beat Ineos, Britannia tomorrow in that match. And then whenever this Brit match against the French happens, the Italians, I think the Italians will win that match. And then I'm pretty sure the Americans will beat the French in that match. And then we'll see if the Swiss, I don't think the Swiss are going to beat the Kiwis one way or another. We'll see if they show, we'll see if they race hard, we'll see if they have a software problem or something else untoward that race doesn't get completed for the reasons we discussed earlier in the show. And if you missed that, we'll go back and watch the show in replay, which gets us to the D block, Julia.
Yes, my favorite buy.
I have only one.
Yes.
I have only one.
All right.
Okay?
Yep.
And it is, I don't even know who sent this in. I've had it in my file for a while, and I just thought since we've been polishing the apple today so much, this was somehow appropriate. It took a while, but I finally, the teacher is saying behind her back to the kids, it took a while, but I finally got them to bringing me those stupid...
To stop.
Stop! Go ahead.
Now, to stop bringing me
Stop bringing me those stupid apples. You like that one? I do too. And meanwhile, you see what's on her desk.
Yes.
A whole bunch of coffees.
And
which is,
spikes.
I'd rather have the coffees.
Yep.
J. Frederick Bland, Swiss over GBR. Bold prediction. Ha ha. Yeah, we'll see. I think GBR will beat FRA. Yeah, I agree, John Emmett. The witching hour is midnight in New Zealand, which is when this racing happens. That gets us to the finish line. 2.5-hour show this morning and now a nearly 2-hour show here. But we knew that would happen and are delighted to do it. And we appreciate all of you coming on to join us. And we would also appreciate, Julia, if
you like, follow, and share. And sharing is particularly important.
Indeed. Just click the share button and share it to your own page or to your friend's page. I have that bottom line. Comments are welcome even in replay. We always say that. And also we want to thank, again, those of you who support us via Patreon or otherwise. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated, because without you all, we wouldn't have a studio. We wouldn't have a show. We wouldn't have a life, Julia. We'd have to retire. And then what would we do?
I don't know.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, you'd have to write your book.
I'd have to write. That's what I would do. Already liked and shared. Thank you, Clark Chapin. Thank you, Don Lunabos. Thank you, Rich Fishbeck, for sending us that nice breakfast.
Yes, indeed.
That nice bagel sandwich. That was great. And thank you, all of you, for your support. We appreciate that very much. And thanks to everybody who gave us audio, video, and images for today's show. There is the usual list. Mark Holland, thank you. Wonderful programming. Claire Harrington. Hello, Vice Commodore Harrington. I saw you made a couple other comments. Thank you so much. And we're cheering for your team, Claire. At least I am. And again, I just want to say that I am cheering for all the challengers to be good enough so that they raise the level, which is what we've seen happen in the past. It happened in 87. It happened in Newport in 83. It happened in 07 in Valencia. And you got to have strong it happened in Bermuda in 17. You got to have strong challengers to help lift all of the other challengers so that one of them gets to the match and at least has a chance against the defender.
Yes.
And if nothing else, I hope the match is close. I hope it's interesting.
Yeah.
I hope their lead changes and not just a walkover. And Davis PL, yes, the Melgus 24 is going on over at San Francisco Yacht Club. Their Worlds, I believe it wraps tomorrow. Josh Tozo has been keeping me informed about all that, and Josh and I are going to try to get together. And Chris actually saying amazing show with the amazing Luca Devoti. Thanks so much for bringing him on. See everyone tomorrow for the watch party at, Chris, it's not 0500 for you. It's 0800 for you on the East Coast, isn't it? Yeah. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow morning, bright and early San Francisco time.
Yeah.
In the meantime, go sailing. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. You too, Julia.
Absolutely.
And ciao for now.